Okay, the floor is yours. I'm not going to do the introduction thing, then you can make it part of your discussion. Is that okay? Is that okay with you? Okay.
Okay, thank you for joining us and being patient. I'm here with the guys from the Institute for Social and Health Sciences. I've got Minya, and I've got Luann, I've got Marinda, Mandisa, and Danilo. And they do very community-orientated work. I think they fall under the Safety and Peace Promotion Research Unit. It's a mouthful. Always, there's very many acronyms that you guys have.
SAPRU.
Yeah, SAPRU. That's the acronym for the division that they belong to. And yeah, we want to get into your stories, in relation to the Ubupepa initiative as well. As researchers, as people, as individuals, we want to get into that, and let's have a conversation about that. So yeah, if we were to start off, please tell me about yourselves. How did you guys become researchers? How did you get to this place in your life?
Well, I'm an intern at the Institute,
Okay.
and I'm probably a researcher by default. I just sort of wound up here. So,
What you mean? So
yeah, embarked on undergrad in psychology.
okay.
Minors in psychology like that.
Mhm.
Applied for multiple master's courses. I liked the research master's course the most and did that, and here I am.
Multiple master's courses in research specifically, or in other fields?
No, the BITS master's course in research psychology.
So what is it about research? What words?
Well, I suppose the flexibility, the ability to make it what it is, to make it anything really, wherever your interest goes, so your research follows.
Okay, interesting. And Minya? What is, why are you in research? Why are you?
Right, so I entered psychology being one of those super ambitious people thinking I was really going to go into clinical.
Mhm.
And then after my undergrad, I realized that this definitely isn't for me. And I moved up to Joburg, and I actually initially did my undergrad at UCT, and then I moved up to Joburg and I did my honors at WITS. And in my honors year, I met some very interesting professors at WITS, and I think that they played a really big part in encouraging me and almost stimulating a lot of thinking around research. And they were, in a sense, the motivation behind me applying for research. And I only applied for research because by that stage I knew that was all I wanted to do. So yeah, I applied to do the same course as Danilo, Research Masters at WITS. I completed my Masters, and I'm just in the process now of completing my internship with the Institute.
Okay, interesting. And Luann, I know you're the more experienced researcher in the Masters. How did you get to this point?
So long ago, I forgot. I've been at the Institute for 17 years. I originally did my undergraduate studies here at UNISA. And while I was doing psychology, the things that really got to me were neuropsychology and community work. And I remember speaking to Professor Plug then, a long time ago, because I knew I wanted to carry on with an academic career. And he told me about the health psychology unit that was then headed by Professor Victor Now. He started it up. And they were really into traumatic brain injury and doing neuropsychological assessment. So I went there and I approached them to do some work, and I got in. And really it developed from there, because initially, although they did traumatic brain injury and neuropsychology, they found out that most head injuries were caused through violence. And so they went down the road of studying violence, injury, and safety promotion.
Oh, interesting. And I mean, you've been in the industry for quite a while now, I assume.
I stayed kind of growing with it.
Okay. And how have you seen psychology change? What, I don't know. If you were to reflect on that, how is it changing?
The work is multidisciplinary. So in some way, I've left psychology behind. I have to go back to it every now and again. But really, we cover criminology, sociology, and it's just exciting. And I think if you really look at intervention, you realize that to accomplish something, you can't just go there with one discipline. We need to work together to accomplish something. So that's really what I've learned.
We'll come back to that because I find that actually quite fascinating. And then Mandisa, your journey, how have you gotten to this point in your life?
Okay, with me, I think research kind of like chose me and forced me to like it. Because I came to Cape Town I wanted to do accounting. I don't know how that, but I just, that's what I wanted to do. And I was late, I could only get into BA, and then after BA I was like, well, I can't really do this. Now you have to do an honors, and I had like language and communication and other things that were just not in line. I don't know. And then psychology looked like the best thing that I could do at the time. Got into psychology honors, BA honors. Then I was like, well, what am I going to do with this? You know, I still don't see myself being where I would like to be. Or so I was like, okay, go into masters. Eventually, when I got into my masters, that's when I realized, like, actually, I could do this, you know, for as long as I really want to. When I finished my masters, I got an internship in the institute and under the program on traditions and transformations. So far, I've loved the work that I do, work on gender, masculinity, positive psychology, and now I find myself actually just completing my registration today for a PhD in psychology research. So this is where I am.
So you sort of by mistake, if you were to call it that, landed up in this space called psychology.
And ended up loving it actually. So, yeah.
Okay, if I don't know, it's a very deep question. At what points did you actually know this is for me? Like, so that sort of light bulb moment. When did it actually hit you that I could actually, as opposed to going the accounting route, I can actually build a career for myself as a psychologist and actually take it up to PhD level? When?
For me, it's really been like a step-by-step transition. Because I mean, after for me, it was like you have to do your honors. And then when it came to deciding to do my masters, it was like, okay, I actually started enjoying the work I did throughout my masters. But only during my internship, I think that's where I was like, you know, I found my niche. This is what I want to do. I've been working on, you know, the areas, the topics. It's something that's very close to me. It's something that excites me. I actually enjoy the work that I did in my internship. Going out there, collecting research, doing everything myself. It was so close that you collect it, you transcribe it yourself, a pain sometimes, and I was like, but I actually enjoy doing it. I would love to do this and actually stay in the field that I'm working in right now. And then last year during my internship, I decided I'm going to do my PhD.
And Marinda, your story?
Well, I come from Pretoria. I studied here at the University of Pretoria. And initially, I also wanted to go into clinical. I was very interested in forensic psychology. I did criminology as well. And I just found it really fascinating. But I started working at the university at the psychology department as a PA, and I did a lot of research assistant work. And while doing that, I realized that, you know, I'm very interested in human behavior, but it's like I'm interested in it. I want to know more. I'm curious about it. It's not that I want to necessarily do therapy, so that's why I decided to go into research. And yeah, I love it. I think it's so stimulating. It's challenging. You get to do different things, use different theories, different methodologies. So, yeah.
An interesting thing though, and this is probably a cliche as well, around, you know, with us obviously splitting clinical psychology and the research psychology, but you guys do very community-based work. And the cliche is often that clinical psychologists are the one who actually who get into the emotions and the feeling side of things. But with the type of work that you guys do, you know, are there ever moments? Do you agree with that cliche that you guys actually don't get into the emotive, very feeling-based, because you guys work with people from, you know, so-called disadvantaged backgrounds?
From my experience, we might not always get one-on-one with someone, but we get a lot of emotive work. We do get very involved with the communities that we work with, and I think it's very hard to take emotions and feelings out of that, and that's something that we struggle with quite a bit. I mean, when you go into one of these ECD centers, early childhood development centers, creches essentially, and in a community, an informal settlement, and you look at the resources that you have available to them, and you look at the challenges that these kids are dealing with on a daily basis, and then you come across us a child who clearly developmentally, you know, from a developmental perspective, isn't at the stage that they should be, you can't not feel something. And while your mind immediately goes to, okay, I'm a researcher, I'm here to get a bit of the information and I'm supposed to get, deep down inside, you're kind of like, no, something needs to be done. You call a colleague and, I don't know, the education department, you're like, someone needs to come out. So like, yeah, I can't say we don't have that. So.
Danilo, your experience?
I think you're in a conflicted position because there's agendas, you're using communities and people within them for specific reasons to produce specific outputs. But when you're there, things get thrown in your way that challenge you emotionally, that put you under pressure as a researcher to do something else that's not within the confines of what you're originally in that community to do. And especially in ECDs where there's no electricity, no running water, children come from backgrounds of abuse, and seriously disrupted families, you often find yourself in a place where you feel a lot for those people.
And how do you separate the two? Because, you know, on the other hand, you've got the statistics that speak, say this is concrete, and then you've got the feeling and, you know.
Well, we're not robots, so, I mean, you feel something and perhaps you use that to funnel the kinds of outputs that you put out at the end, and the agendas and the things that the changes that you want to make in those areas. These projects, being community-based, ultimately are about improving those communities, so it sort of entrenches those agendas.
I think that's the other side of it, the positive side. The people who come to your training, who are willing to be there, who are volunteers, and to see them grow and develop, and what they do, just talking about the ECD teachers, how they've taken the information from the training and how they're running with it and their leadership qualities. So they certainly come with strengths, and to see them use it and apply it, I think that's the main reward.
I think also for some of us, I don't do that much community work, but what I've found is that when I go out and collect my data, when you talk to someone, you might not be thinking about it in that way, but you tend to realize that that actually for them serves as, what I found with the participant audit, it serves as an outlet, a session, you know, for them it's more almost like a therapeutic session, because now when you sit and I listen to sometimes to the interviews and you find that this is where someone has to find it hard to talk to you about, you know, issue questions that you're asking about, and sometimes they add more to it than what you have asked. And it's something close to them at times, and people have to think about it, am I going to share this, it's close to me, but at the same time you're talking about this person, you're digging into this person's space. I think that's close more or less what psychologists do. So now I think slightly you don't, you know, sit down and like try to really counsel the person. What you'll find is that if they need help, then you can refer them to someone. But I found that my sessions, my interview collections has been really intense, because if you ask me about, you know, how did you know, being a man, being a father, some of them will start talking about, okay, I didn't learn how to be a father because my father passed away years ago. I had to learn from someone else, or I had to, you know, look at other models on TV or elsewhere of being a father, and then they start digging into that pain or whatever that they have really not have been talking about. So it also, I felt like I've been getting much of that.
Interesting. So we're not just cold hard researchers, we're people as well. So, and I know, Miranda, you also are involved in the Google Pepper project. I think it's the photo session, something like that. And how do you find that separation between the researcher, you know, and the actual methodologies that we use and the feeling, you, the person as well, you know?
Yeah, I'm part of the photo documentary on successful aging in the elderly. And it's a bit of an alternative methodology. Basically, interviews were done with the elderly, and then professional photographer took photos of them, and then the two were basically put together. And so the elderly are not just talking, but they're also talking out through the photos. It's like they are given a voice to articulate something that they could maybe not have said, you know, verbally. And I think it's a very powerful way of also getting to know the community, and also for them to speak to outside their community. So I think there's a lot.
How do their stories then make you feel through the photos?
You feel like you get to know them. Like I've been working with the photo book that we're compiling quite closely, and I literally feel like I know them personally. When I met actually two of the participants 2 days ago, and it was like because I kind of knew their stories in a way, and it's just you get so close to them.
Interesting. And I suppose, I mean, I'm in the MARC group and I've got a dissertation, and this is the only thing that I focus on. And you know, most of you guys have been interns, you know, and how have you managed that jump, you know, the transition from actually focusing on your own research dissertation to working in a huge project with group dynamics and everything else? How have you guys managed it? How have you guys played around with that? How have you that transition?
I've loved it. It's completely different from having just one thing in front of you that you have to put all your energy into, to having so many different projects that stimulate you on so many different levels. I didn't find it difficult whatsoever. I enjoy working in a team environment. We help each other out, we support each other. Where you fall short, someone else will fill the gaps, vice versa. So from my own experiences, it's almost refreshing. And you get so much experience because you're working on so many different things at the same time. So like 1 minute you're doing data cleaning over here, and next minute you're going out and you're doing focus group discussions with some of the parents of the ECD children. The next minute you're actually mapping a whole community. So it's the variety is wonderful. It really keeps you on your toes. So.
And Manjis, how have you found that?
Okay, I have actually, I'm not working on one paper, so I'm not working with a big group. I'm working on POT. I work directly with Professor Adele, and most of the work has been just the two of us that, you know, discuss or work through the issues out loud and look better. But also, not in isolation, because if they need someone who wants to help out with the ECD, that's why you constantly, whether you're working on the one project, you have to be aware of what other people are doing, so that when you need it to fill in some way, you don't have to almost like be struck, okay, but you know, if Mia can't do something or she's not available, you need to almost be ready, always ready to fill in that. And I think it's really worked because we know what most of us do, because we talk about it. We managed to, you know, work very well with the group dynamics and really share like office space. So you talk about things every day. I know what she does every day. She knows what I'm doing. So it works very.
But what's the challenge with multitasking? I often think, you know, especially within the Institute for Social and Health Sciences, there's multiple projects running concurrently as well. There's this multitasking as well, as opposed to a dissertation, supervisor, very rigid structure. How are you handling that multitasking?
Well, you have to stay goal focused, so it's difficult to produce outputs consistently on every single project that you've embarked on. So if you're talking about papers around project topics, often papers are started, ideas are sprouted, and they don't end up being papers that are published and disseminated into a public space. So for me, I think I can see that as a challenge.
And how have you seen interns manage this transition from I'm from a varsity, I look at this dissertation, and now I'm in the real world, and I have to actually apply research and apply my knowledge.
Yeah, I must admit, we've been very lucky with our interns. All of them just stepped up, kind of hit the ground running. That's how I can describe it. But all of them have met the tasks and challenges that we have put for them. What I want to say when you talk about this group and all the multitasking and how the interns make that transition. For me, what I found, and I don't know from their perspective, but from my point of view, is that we get interns every year, and so they leave. So it's not only building personal relationships, I mean, you've grown to like the person, and then also the skills that they brought, and the contribution to the project itself. Because if we talk about a book of paper, let me say that it's probably in its 4th year, and there's been development all the way. So maybe the original people were involved in designing tools for data gathering. Now we've only got to the 3rd year, we've just finished the intervention manual, and now we're going to implement the intervention. So there have been people coming in and out. So for me, it's been a loss, a personal loss of the relationship you've created and what they've contributed to the project, and now they're gone. So yes, so from that I see the loss, but I want to know from their perspective, how do they feel being thrown in the middle of a project that they didn't design, but they have to pick it up and run with it. So.
Yeah, it's kind of challenging because, like, the first documentary I came in my pathway basically. It was already, the data was already collected, it's just about analyzing it and disseminating. But you find a way. I mean, it's luckily because we work together really closely, and you know, there's not just one or two people that's on a project. There's multiple people, so you always have people that you can go to and consult. And everything is noted down, so it's easy to kind of find a way.
Don't you ever feel small if you don't know certain data analysis techniques, or how have you had that learning? Because it's obviously a steep learning curve as well. You know, this is in textbook, and I remember when you guys presented to us during the placement presentations, and you said, I remember I spoke about the paradigm, the PAR approach, you know, the participatory action research, and you said in real life it's actually very different, and I was like, okay, what is the difference, and how does it play out in real life?
Theory and practice.
I think that's probably one of the most challenging things. If you're coming directly out of university and you're going to work, it's trying to separate yourself solely as an academic and then also as a person who's not an academic. When we're putting the manual together, and the manual is supposed to be accessible to everyone. So everyone should be able to pick it up, everyone should be able to read it, and everyone should be able to understand it. So as academics, we tend to talk and write in a particular way, which obviously doesn't make our dialogue accessible to everyone. That's just one example of trying to balance both, because you need to be both at the same time. And coming out of university straight away, your mind's just solely into that academic
jargon.
Exactly. You're going to the community and you start talking like an academic. People are just going to look at you and be like, yeah, so, you know.
Or ask you, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
What am I going to get?
What am I going to get? As opposed to, please come in, sit down. You know, we're all equals here. Let's talk. Let's discuss. Because that's pretty much the type of community participation that we try to work with. Where, you know, going back to that whole community thing, there is a relationship there, and there is a long-standing relationship there. One of the communities we worked with for over 15 years. Am I right? And it's one of the staff members. Actually, when he walks into that community, everyone knows him. People approach him, they ask him questions, they greet him. It's that type of relationship. Well,
so you guys would say probably the institute or the projects are embedded in the communities now, and you form a very intimate part of the social structure, I assume, as well. That's interesting.
And they're embedded within our projects as well. It's not just us within them. It's this relationship that really just works together.
Interesting. And I think then looking at the Paper project, how have you grown? As I know you've probably done a lot of projects, but now let's look at a specific project. How have you grown, or within the subdivisions of the project? How have you grown? What have you learned as a person? And if you were to reflect back into yourself, how have you changed as a person? Deep question. I was going to ask you about you, you know. Skills-wise, the skill set that you acquired, how has it affected you as a person?
I mean, thinking about this idea of being either qualitative or quantitative is out of the window the day you arrive. Because, I mean, you go from qualitative to quantitative methodologies in a day on two different projects, on the same project. So on that note, you are acculturated into all the different types of research practices. You learn not to be too specific about them and not to have a favorite, really. I mean, you go from one to the other interchangeably all the time.
And also, I've had to learn that, being a researcher is not just about, you sit there, you write up reports, sometimes there were days where I feel like a social worker, or days where I feel like, literally I'm a volunteer, but literally I've come to know that, I mean, these are the people you study. You don't want to, you don't put yourself in a certain position where you work with them. So it's like, you get into that space. It's not just about me, the researcher, it's about me being in this community, working with people in this community. Because my challenge was, there's like a youth day campaign that we do each year, but it helped me grow a lot. You go into a community, each year a new intern takes that project up, because that's their task. Now last year, it's in the Kusei community. The previous year, another intern who was there had done that. The people, they are familiar with this person. They know this person. We want Candice, we want to know this person. We know them. And then now you have to introduce yourself as, okay, but I'm here now. So that for me was a struggle, because then now you have to like, okay, it's frustrating because you need to, try to understand other people as well, and, be able to communicate with them, and having to open yourself up to them and them open up to you for them to actually get into our space. We actually want you here now. We actually want to work with you. So that for me, I've had to learn a lot about how you engage with people and how you increase people and how you actually get them to work and want to work with you. And I think that's how we actually build relationship with the people that I work with from the community then. So it's something that I've never thought I would have to end up doing as a researcher.
Interesting. It must be challenging, I suppose, as well. So when you are an outsider, you sort of need to, understand their culture, their language, and everything else. Do you guys see that as a barrier? How do you manage that transition from sure different cultures, different languages? And you have to somewhat, and you've got this academic language, and I suppose that's a challenge. Sorry?
We have Royal, the gentleman the staff member was talking about, Mr. Royal the Corba. He's phenomenal. Without him, I think we'd lose pretty much our connection to the community. I mean, he's like the heart. So he speaks a number of languages, he understands, so he's very good at transitioning us. So he, for example, he'll do all the introductions and he'll bring us in, and he's the one that usually establishes the trusting relationships first, and he's just phenomenal at that. So he really assists us in that way quite a bit. So.
Interesting. And then obviously you guys work in a team. Have there been tough times where the team was struggling, there were fights, I think that's the juicy stuff. What's wrong? Oh, we don't love each other. It's a team.
You know what? Just from my point of view, I can't specifically say there's been problems with us as a team, but there have been problems with us and the community.
Okay. As a
That
team.
has been,
as a team.
yes. That has been most of the attention. I think because sometimes we don't quite understand them, or they don't understand us, what we try. And sometimes you think that you've had a relationship for 15 years, you maybe start taking things for granted. Just very recently, when we believed that we had covered our bases and done everything to start implementing the intervention, we had people step forward and say, no, you can't. You will come speak to us. So we were like taken aback and wondered how we got ourselves into that position and had to reflect a bit. But really, all it was about was people being acknowledged. They wanted us to know that they were also leaders and that we should consult with them. And dealing with that. So I think that we need to think more carefully, are you including everybody? So it's just really about keeping people informed, respecting people, and see where they are. What is the position within the community? Because people also put themselves forward as leaders. And if they've got enough strength, you need to accommodate them as well.
And through your experience, over the years, what has probably been the most difficult team challenge or issue that came up when you dealt with community?
Okay, then, that's just one aspect of it. Another tension are the very volunteers or community workers that work with us. And, I think sometimes it's difficult to describe exactly what the tensions are or why they arise, because you can see that you're all working towards the same goal. But maybe they want to do it differently or we want to do it. I think it does come across with us and them. You try very hard not to make it that way. I think what comes into that too is that we are working with people who live in low-income communities. Poverty is everywhere, and it's about respecting them, and they're also looking for employment. So it's meeting those requirements. Not only are they looking for employment, they also do come with experience. And you using that experience, whether it be to help you collect questionnaires or to help you speak to people to get them involved in your intervention. So they do come with a set of skills which they want to be recognized, and it is the correct thing to do. So there are, for me, there's a lot of tensions in working with the community. You think you've sorted them out, you've been in for 15 years, and then they surface again, or new ones surface, and you have to keep on dealing with them.
It's like a relationship. It's almost, you always need to water this plant and for it to grow continuously, I suppose. And Marina, have you had any sort of close contact with communities?
Yeah, I have. We did a series of community conversations in the Broadlands Park, that's in Cape Town.
Okay.
And it was basically, the aim was to just have an open, informal discussion with community members and stakeholders and find out what are their experiences of the project, because a few months before we filed this particular project, and also what they feel about their community and what they feel could be changed. And I think it's something that I experience as a researcher, is that there's that constant challenge, and I think it's been mentioned actually before now, that between research and the community, and how do you balance the two? Because no one in the community, they don't always understand the research process exactly as it is. They know it's a study, but they don't really, they don't really understand the whole thing. And you come into the community with your mind being this is a study, but it's not as clean as that. It's messy. So it can be challenging.
And Danilo, have you had any interactions or engagement very intimately?
Yeah, well, we visited the ECDs on multiple occasions. I've only been at the Institute for about 3 months now, so I don't have a lot of time to engage with people. I've also been on various visits to old age homes, and that's something that's been interesting. I've seen a lot of interaction between Royal and the community, and seen how important it is for him to maintain those relationships in order for us newcomers to be inducted into these places.
And I suppose you mentioned earlier on, and it's a very theoretical sort of question, but it's also linked to you as a researcher who's got a lot of experience. You've said you've become more multidisciplinary, and obviously you've then had to challenge yourself to learn more and to develop yourself continuously as a professional, as a researcher. How has that process been like?
Well, for me, I found it, I think to me it was dynamic, changing. I was very interested in it. Also that you weren't put in a box, and that's where you had to stay. So for me, especially when you're looking at prevention and intervention, it opens up, there's so many possibilities. So to me then, I think that there is a solution. If you look that you have more possibilities, there's got to be a solution.
And the learning experience, did you not feel, I'm a psychologist at this,
No.
or was it easy for you to just transition and make that very smooth transition into?
I think with me, I became interested in the topic, not in psychology. I became interested in preventing injury, safety. So whatever it took to do that, from whichever discipline you had to understand it from. So I wasn't, how can you say, married to psychology kind of. It was the getting safety done. So if psychology helped, but there are other things that help too.
And this is often, I always want to ask my sort of peers and guys who are doing internships, how did you then choose to do this socially focused research? I mean, you could do market research, you could do research in various contexts, and you know, make money, blah, 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 but why the socially focused research? I mean, you've got the options, you've got a master's degree, you can do anything.
I think it's dynamic and changing, and that's what's exciting about it. You can go there and do anything and make it what you want, so that's what I like to do.
So that sort of personal control, or that internal locus of control, I suppose.
Well, yeah, the topics are broad. In market research, an internship would require you to do a certain type of interview along a certain line. This more socially informed research is a lot more dynamic and open to your own interpretation, and I like that.
Similarly for me, I think I was looking for something that's close to what I was used to doing. I mean, as a student, you work on your master's thesis, you go out, you read, you collect data, you write, you write. That whole process, and I've when doing my research, I found that the work that was done in the unit, I mean, it's a lot of research, but it also, gives you that social aspect of it. You go out to work with people, as opposed to, in a market research environment where you don't collect data, someone else collects the data, you do the analyzing. I don't know how the other environments work, but for me, that was like the option. That research was like the most, I don't know, sensible thing at the time to do, and something that will not take me far away from what I have been doing already. I think that's, yeah.
So it's get this issue of control, having to work at control. Is it like that for you? Just having that control, like, I want the whole process. I want to be in charge of it somehow.
I think we all want to, kind of take control of it. But I think for me, there are two reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. One, we all inherently go into psychology because we want to help someone or, a community. We have this desire to work with people. So that was the one reason that I'm doing the type of research that I'm doing, because it is very interactive with people. Second reason is because it's challenging and because we grow with challenges. And you learn so much. And I can't see myself doing market research. I can't see myself trying to sell some cereal to someone.
But then, I think we all, you're saying that, and I think Dalil also mentioned, and Andisa mentioned, that you want to go and make a difference, you want to change people's lives. I don't know, at some point, this being, it's almost idealistic somewhat, in some sort of way. Right? Was there a point where you thought, maybe, the world isn't going to change, or I'm actually not going to make a difference? Was there a point in your career where you thought, this is hopeless, what are we doing?
You know what, I have those moments often. Sometimes you just think things overwhelm you. But really, I think what you need to do is take small steps or look at small changes, little changes, and you realize that one little change is actually worth everything you've done. Just for example, when I first started here, I worked with a group for teenage mothers, a support group for teenage mothers. Anyway, they eventually got to go on a 6-week training course, which gave them skills. In my mind, it kind of got two birds with one stone. It was a course that taught them how to look after their children and to become an easy teacher. So I thought it would, at least now they can look after their babies, and if they want to work afterwards, they at least have that skill. And they went through that, and I think about 6 of them afterwards started their own creche in one of the townships. And to me, just that little change, I don't know what happened afterwards, but to me that was something worthwhile.
On the bridge.
Yeah, well there you go, there's another one. You can talk about that.
You guys, was there a point where you thought, I was young and idealistic and this is not going to work?
Well, I think, change takes time, especially in communities. And I think one should remind yourself that you're doing something now, but the fruits of your labor may only be seen a few years later. So I do believe that you are making a difference. You're planting a seed. And, even if you're just changing the way people think about something, it can set a course to something bigger.
I think when you're just about starting, or starting, to work in a research environment, I found that I had a lot of idealistic ideas. Like, I want a superwoman, I went out, when I was working on my youth day, the youth campaign, I had to go out and I had volunteers from the community, young people at the school, who actually took this whole thing up and just ran with it, and we planned it together. And you start talking about them, they talk about the challenges they go through as young people and the things that they are struggling with at the moment. And then you feel like, I'll go back to the office and I'll say to my supervisor, look, can't we do this? But can't we do anything like slow down? Slow down. I mean, obviously we are, the reason why we're there is because we're trying to find ways of, making a difference or some difference, but also you don't want to just go there and say, okay, this is like what I think should be working here, because you don't know if they think that's, the best suiting solution for their problems at the time. And I've had to really sometimes sit back and think about the ideas that I actually do come up with, and like, how's about you think, hold on, think about it next week, and come back and just think about it again. Is this really practical with this work? And is there a way forward from this? Is this the best way to approach it? So I've had quite a lot of like those moments.
It's interesting you mentioned that youthful exuberance and having to balance the practicalities as well. I don't know, what has been your experience then?
Much the same. I think you come in with certain ideals and things that you believe are achievable, and you have to be able to manage those expectations and move forward. I think Miranda said, it takes time. These are communities who've been there already for many years, and the change has been slow, and it will probably continue to be slow. That's just the nature of the beast.
And I suppose as well, you guys are interns and move partners. You mentioned earlier on that you miss the people. They come in, they start the phase, of a project, they complete certain work, and then they move on. How do you guys feel about letting go? At some point, you may have to leave and go on to greener pastures, if there are any, And, yeah. How do you guys feel about that? Have you reflected on that, or don't you want to think about it? Are you repressing? You've got clinical psychologists here. So.
Well, I'm not going anywhere at this point, possibly for the next 3 years, because my internship is actually, my PhD is, it's a PhD internship, it's in the unit, so obviously as long as I progress for the next 3 years, I'll have to complete my PhD if I do it in which should, hopefully. And so I'm here for the 3 years, so I don't have to, separation anxiety worries as yet.
If you were to leave, then, hypothetically, it's an internship and you may have to move on. It's happens. How do you feel about that process?
Well, similar situation, I've signed on to stay for another year, but I think that I've got that terrible philosophy, I'll deal with it when I get to it. So I'm going to think about that and deal with the emotions and everything next year. But I can imagine it's going to be very difficult to get attached to people, get attached to projects, You see the outcome of your work and you see with the potential there, and you get very excited and knowing that you're going to leave that behind, obviously.
Somebody else to take credit.
Exactly. Well, and you don't trust that person. You're like, it's my control. I don't know how they're going to do it.
Yeah, I also signed up for another year.
So you guys are just attached. You don't it's your community, it's your work. You just want to stay there.
Yeah, well, I feel like a year is too short. I think 1 year internship is you just get into it. You literally, it takes you like about, well, for me it felt like 6 months, and then I just felt like, okay, I know what I'm doing, and I mean, another 6 months, and then the year is over, and it's just too short. So I feel like I need to just have at least 1 extra year just to finish up these things, because you don't want to just drop something just when you started with it.
And also, sorry for my ad, I think what this then helps with is a sense of, because the communities also want that sense of stability, and they don't want that, environment where every day we're working with new people. So if Miranda's been working, let's say, for example, on the elderly component, and she gets to stay there for 2 years, if someone else comes in, let's say, for example, the new interns, she's there to almost like walk them at least that introduction, that phase, before she leaves. They're already, trying to, or building a relationship with the person who's coming in, while she's been there through half of the.
So would you then argue then that researchers who do this community-based type of work need to stay on for long to sort of, because the communities, it's almost like the communities are traumatized, as in, oh, now there's this change, this person used to look after this project and now we have a new person every year. Do you think that should be standard?
That is exactly what happened in one of our other groups. Kind of, the experience you had when being introduced to them. They complained every year that someone, a new intern was being assigned to them, and eventually what they told us is that doesn't make them feel important anymore. Just been assigned a new, they want someone who's with the institute for a long time, and in that way they feel that their work is recognized. So yeah, there are difficult things, but that's how internships and that work.
And it's hard because sometimes I have one person in the community who actually asked me that, okay, so now last year we had someone else and you're here now, so you're also going to leave us and then you're going to get someone new. I'm like, but well, this is how, you know, the nature of the work, and this is the, if you're not signed in to stay longer, then if there's not, you know, funds or anything, or room, or the opportunity doesn't present itself, then you have to leave. And then I'm like, but at the same time, it's, and this person said to me, well, if you think we're so important, if you really want to make this difference, how about you quit your job and come do this thing? If you think, if you care so much, if you want to do this, if they don't keep you on, how's about you just quit them and come do this full time? And that's also a challenge. You need resources to go out into communities. You need to engage with them, you know, that support, that so it's, yeah. And sometimes it hits you hard. If someone says to you, well, if you care so much, why don't you drop what you're doing and come focus on us? And you're like, okay.
That's interesting. And I suppose for researchers also move from project to project to project. We're like research consultants and always, and this idea that you guys have, just you have to stay on, and you need to sort of, if you leave, you need to gradually maybe make that transition as well. But that's very, very interesting. It's very interesting. And yeah. I suppose we've covered a lot. I'm trying to think of actually explore. We've covered a lot. And yeah, thank you, I think, for just coming through and giving us your stories and your in relation to the type of work that you do, you know, with classroom paper and the various other projects that you do at the institute, you know. And thank you for giving us your time, and yeah, all the best for the future, and thank you.
Thank you for interviewing the group. Any questions or comments to anybody, any of the participants there at the back?
Marinda, I was interested in actually also finding out how do you handle, you know, the momentum that an intern has brought to the effort that they've had within the project activities, and suddenly they have to, you know, or sadly they have to go. How have you sort of like kept it up and kept your research initiatives more effective, you know, that transition?
You want to ask me the question?
Sorry, everyone. I got the name.
Yes. No, I mean, and because what you are mentioning is a difficult situation, because first of all, you want them to have that momentum and drive, so you actually encourage it as well. I think what has happened, when we get to the end of the year, like we've asked Minya to stay on, we've asked Marinda to stay on, that's what we try to do, obviously if they're funds. In most cases, we have managed that. So that is one way of keeping it. There have, however, been times where we've had to let people go because we were only able to keep them for a year. And that is very difficult. You need to deal with it, but at the same time, you need to keep that drive up, because you really need your students to have that drive in order to do the work.
I'd like to find out about the bridge.
Oh, the bridge. A couple of years ago, our researchers went into one of the communities we work with, and they did research, they did studies, and they found that, what was the number of fatalities?
Oh, I can't tell you the number.
It was only like 13.
But it was a highway. The informal settlement was built right against the highway. So they crossed the highway to the suburb there where all the shops and the schools were.
So we found that there was a very high number of mortalities that were that were happening with people crossing the highway trying to get to the other side to access resources and schooling. And a lot of those fatalities were children. So based on the research and the findings, that was taken to government, and government actually built a bridge to the other side, so which decreased the number of people obviously dying on the road. So, which is, you know, it is a big thing. And when you drive on the highway, as you will when you come to visit us, you'll see that bridge, and you cross it every day, and you almost remind it every day, like, oh, okay, something to show, yeah.
There's a nice metaphor as well. I was actually, as I said earlier, I sort of watched the movie and didn't watch the movie last night. And I watched MasterChef and I didn't watch MasterChef. But MasterChef Australia's episode reminded, or the conversation reminded me of that. The two teams, each team of about 8 or 9 or 10 people, had 2 hours to cook a meal as a team, but one person at a time. So there's one person in the kitchen, and you had like 60 seconds to give instructions to the next person coming in, and 2 hours later, judges judged the meal. But no recipes, no nothing. You had so in terms of that transition, you know, people come and go, and often you have 60 minutes to tell the leg of lamb is in the oven, needs to stay there for another 10 minutes, or the cupcakes need to get out now and need icing. And that often, I think, happens in real life, where you know, as you said, Luann, a project is being designed by a group of people and with time. But what I'm also hearing in terms of internships, a lot of focus was on internships, and some of you are still currently busy with your internships, and you supervise interns over a period of time. What I'm also hearing is sort of the working together in a group, because I'm also aware of students doing internships, not in isolation, but in a place where they encourage students to create internships, all of that.